So, I got another package in the mail today, and I'm hoping by the shape of it that it's a laptop keyboard, because I have a laptop with a broken keyboard in the house, so that'd come in really handy. One of the things that put me off laptops in the early days was, aside from the cost, because they were expensive by today's standards, I was a build-it-yourself sort of guy, like to put computers together out of bits and pieces. You've got power supplies from here, and motherboards, and if your keyboard blew up, you just put a new keyboard on it. And I was a bit put off by laptops because I thought, oh no, replacing a keyboard, you might as well replace the laptop. And of course, it's not the case, especially these days. Keyboards are very easy to get a hold of, and most of the time very easy to replace. And that's usually the first thing to go. If you're careful with a laptop, sometimes the screens go, and that's a bit more of a world of hurt. But generally speaking, your keyboards and maybe even drives might be probably your biggest thing, and they're actually easy to get. I'm a little bit concerned about this one actually, because it was only $25, which seems even cheap by today's standards. So I don't know how good a quality it's going to be, but it's got to be better than the other one. It's in the laptop, my wife's laptop. Has had a bad life. One of the keys was eaten by a parrot, and we never did find it to put back on. It's just gone a long time ago. Actually, it was fairly new when that happened, and it's also had a bit of an accident with a cup of coffee through no fault of the owner. You know who did it if you're watching. Had a bit of an accident with a cup of coffee, and some of the keys are not working anymore, and they're getting worse and worse. It's not getting any better. But even just normal wear and tear, I found a lot of the cheap laptops I've bought, the lifespan's a year or so. I'm a heavy user, but very easy to replace. Some of them are very easy. Some of them have a few hidden screws. Some of them don't. My white one there, you just pop it out with some prizes, and it just pops out, and you just reconnect the ribbon cable and pop it back in. Some of them have some hidden screws. That old black one, it's not quite on screen. Over here behind me, it's got a couple of hidden screws. You've got to pop out a little strip that's got some hidden screws on it. Now, this one that this has to go into has some hidden screws somewhere. I don't know where they are. I have tried to pop the keyboard out, but it's got some screws in somewhere. I'm hoping that this keyboard will at least show me where they are, and I'm assuming that some of the ones on the back actually go all the way through the keyboard. So that could be interesting. It could be fun. And this is a Toshiba, by the way. Toshiba, replacing the keyboard. When I buy laptops, I must admit, one of the things I look at is, I wonder how hard that keyboard is to replace. Do you have to take off a front cover, and how much pulling apart? I like the ones that sort of lay in where you can sort of see the edge of the keyboard, because some of them seem to have a surface plate over the top that looks like you've got to pull off to get to the keyboard. For some reason, now there's what it looks. And look, a lot of places will replace keyboards fairly cheap anyway, but why not do it yourself if you can, because it's something fun to do, especially on an old laptop that this might not be your main production machine. So let's give it a go. First thing we've got to do, actually one of the things I need to do is fix my screwdriver, which seems to spin inside the handle and actually falls off, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but that's another project. Was a cheapie. The trouble is I actually bought this one at Bunnings, and it cost me more than it should have. I saw the same thing online from China for about less than half the price. I should have bought the cheap Chinese one, because then I'd just say, well, it's just a cheap Chinese thing I got on eBay, rather than paying a fortune at twice the price at Bunnings. But oh well. Next thing we're going to need to do is open our little box. Cut some tape, and we have a keyboard of sorts in there. Hopefully the right sort. It looks like anti-static stuff in it, doesn't it? I don't think static's a big issue with keyboards. And all that environmental damage there. So we have a keyboard. They're very thin, and they just sort of lay in, and they clip. If you're taking these out, you have to be really careful taking them out if you're going to be reusing the keyboard, because some of these little tabs and that do get bashed around. It's just a little, I don't know, you probably can't see that. If I try and focus, it'll focus on my face there. They're little tiny metal tabs on a lot of these. They're very weak. They bend up and damage fairly easily. It's not too bad when you're replacing it with a nice new keyboard, because pulling the old one out sometimes can get damaged. They're sort of good because they are pretty weak, so it's going to damage the keyboard rather than the tabs where it's got to go into the computer, which you don't want to damage because you've got to keep that bit. And because generally a lot of these are just held in these days. My white one, it's only held in by these little tabs. There is nothing else. And you pull the keyboard out and it gets a bit bent. You put it back in, it just doesn't want to sit flat. This one has a couple of extra screws on the back, which are the problem screws on this thing. Has a couple of screws on the back. So it's sort of held in, but even then, you know, you can see they're sort of towards the middle, so these ends can bend up, so which is something you don't really want, because it's quite flimsy, but that's held in by these tabs. And I've had ones where I've had to pull them out for particular reasons. Sometimes you've got to really pull the computer right apart to clean the fan, but sometimes you can they've got like a tricky hole there where you can just pop the keyboard out and just get to the fan just under the keyboard. But I don't have a computer like that at the moment, or it's probably in storage there. I have got another one that might be like that, and that's quite handy. One stage they used to have screws along the top here which were hidden under a strip, but we'll go through that when we put it in, and we'll put that in and see how it goes. So I'll have to thank my daughter for bringing in this nice new table into the room, which is already too small and it's taking up all the room, but that's all right. It's a nice table. Only problem is there's not a lot of light on this side of the room. Anyway, here is the laptop in question. It's actually not that old. I don't know the actual date on this. It's an unusual numbering system. This one's S50t, so it's sort of different to the normal Toshiba numbering system, but it's in the days where they've stopped putting removable batteries. The hard drive cover is not there. We've just got a memory RAM cover, and I think your hard drive, you have to pull out the optical drive to get to that. It's running about 8 gig of RAM, and as you can see, keyboard has a missing key. It's also not so visible is the fact that it's a bit of a thing with coffee. Bit of a coffee spill. I think the spill, I'm not sure where the spill was. I think it was on this side. Some of these keys are not working. Gave it a bit of a clean up at the time, and it has worked. And that's been quite a long time too. That must be it's got to be at least a year. We were in the old house, so it's over a year. It's probably 2 years since that happened. So it gives you an idea of the age of the computer. So it's probably a I'm guessing here, 3-year-old computer. Still quite good. My wife doesn't do a heck of a lot of stuff. She mostly uses it for Facebook, and she plays a few games on it. She plays Banished on it, which I used to play, and I tried to play it again. I'll have to do that sometime, play it again. Last time I played it, I had no idea what I was doing. The thing about this one is, as we say before, we have got a couple of screws that we're going to have to remove. So we'll just lay that on top of there. So that's going to go in there like that. So we'll flip the computer over. We'll flip the keyboard over and get a bit of an idea where those screws are. And by the looks, it looks like it's going to be, those couple of screws are going to be the culprits. We're going to have to get those out, which is not a big problem if I had a screwdriver. So I'll get my crappy screwdriver, which I've got to then use right down on the end. And I probably have pulled these couple of screws out before. I don't know why there wasn't enough to get this keyboard out. I didn't have a keyboard to replace it last time, so I was just playing. I do pull things apart just for lols, just to see how they're going to go. Now, a lot of these, one of the ways to do these is pull this screw out and slide out the CD-ROM. We may do that in a second. If we can't just prop this up, we might be able to just prise this up. And as I was saying before, there are these little metal tabs which are hard to see in this light, but they're just little bent bits of metal if you're pulling the keyboard out and you're going to be replacing and keeping the keyboard, you've got to be really careful with them, because they're going to get damaged, and you can sort of bend them straight a little bit sometimes, but a bit of a pain in the bum. But you might be able to just pop this out without actually, you might be able to just pop that out like that. Without actually having to take out the CD-ROM. Yep. Work out where the ribbon cable is. And you just gently work our way along, work out where the tabs are. And as you can see, these actually pop out fairly easily. And unfortunately, it's the wrong keyboard. Not sure if you can see those little connectors in there. Actually got two connectors. This keyboard might be made for the ones without lighting or something, so keyboard will probably work just without the lighting, so we're going to put it in anyway, because I don't think she's going to give a shit about the lighting. I think that's just it's possibly just a lit and unlit version, so we're going to whack it in anyway, because I think she'd rather have working keys than whether they're lit or not. So we're going to just, and we'll keep an eye out for another keyboard maybe later. And that's probably why it's a bit cheaper. Now these can be a problem, getting these things out, especially when you've got bad eyes like me. So yeah, essentially you've got those couple of little white tabs there. You've just got to lever them up fairly carefully, and that loosens the cable off, and then you can just pull the cable out. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's not too hard. These ones over here are a little bit harder. They're it's hard to get the tool around them, especially while you're holding a camera, but yeah, just lever them up. It takes the pressure off the cable. It's like a release thing, and then the cable's free, and then putting it back in is just the reverse of that. Not exactly the right keyboard, but I have a feeling that will still work just without the lighting. This is an unlit version of the same keyboard. So we can just push those in. We may get another keyboard later, but for now we're going to just slide that ribbon in there. Doesn't want to slide in quite right. They never do they? Slide that in there, and just press our little blacky things in. Push them back towards the front of the computer to lock and that will lock the ribbon cable in place. So you just got to make sure those little black tabs are pushed back down into place. And that is all there is to it. Maybe a good opportunity. This one's one of those ones with the semi sort of open fan there. Give it a bit of a blowout, although it doesn't look too bad. To do it properly, you're really going to have to pull the machine apart. Once we've done that and put the wrong keyboard back in the machine, although it should be functional still, like I say, mainly what they've got there is, what they've done with this one is, I'm pretty sure this has got it's a glowy in the dark type keys, which I'll look around a bit more for that. I forgot all about that, being like that, and this is just a generic keyboard that fits in multiple models, and it included her model, so I just sort of went with it. Now hopefully it'll still fit in there fine, and we should be able to just pop that in there. Actually, they pop in way better. That space key seems to be sitting up a little bit. As I say, it is not the toppest quality keyboard ever made. So I will look for another one. But it was cheap. It was very cheap, and it is functional. And then all we've got to do is put those couple of screws back in, and it really is that easy. I think that's probably one of the worst quality keyboards I've seen. So if you do see a better quality one, go for it. At least if the keys at least make work, that'll be a big plus from non-working keys. And we just got to put these couple of screws back in and we're done. Don't over tighten these, they're fairly weak most of the time. If you can get them to even start. Probably hanging out of the way. Had to push the keyboard up to make it work. So yeah, that's essentially back in now, and hopefully that will work. Just won't be lit. It's sitting in there a bit better now. Press it all around the edge, and as you can see, it actually clips in. They clip in really easily, those clips. They're really made for going one way only, really. They go in really well and they don't like coming out. So there you go. It was as easy as that, and hopefully that will kick up and have a functional keyboard, which would be a plus. What can we do to test? We'll put up a new tab, see if we can type something. But as you can see, it still functions perfectly well as a normal keyboard without the lighting. It looks warpy there. I keep looking at it because it feels like it's got a bump in the middle. But yeah, as you can see, it's got the caps lock lights and all those normal lights work. It's just that all the keys were lit up on the other keyboard, sort of glow in the darky type thing. It doesn't have that. Always pays to look exactly on the specs, because that's always a tricky bit. So if you've got that laptop at home with a keyboard that's missing a key, or it doesn't have a key working real well, or you've plugged in an external USB keyboard because of that, don't suffer like that. Get a keyboard, be careful, unlike me, and get the exact keyboard if you are worried about having the backlighting. That finding the keyboard sometimes is the hardest part, but that one works perfectly, and you know, it was cheaper than the one that was lit anyway. So, but anyway, you get a keyboard. They are very easy to put in. Some are worse than others, obviously. Try and have a good look at how your keyboard is beforehand. If you think it looks a bit tricky, you probably find you'll get somebody to replace them fairly cheap. There's no point suffering with them, and you know, with a crappy keyboard. But they are fun to do on your own, especially if you've got one that's easy to do like that. So I'll go see what the owner thinks of having no lit up keys, or whether they even notice. Probably won't in the daytime. So shh, don't tell anybody. So as a bit of a postscript to that, went and took it back to the owner, and apparently the light hasn't worked in a long time anyway, so she's not going to miss the lights on it. It is a very different, if you actually look close, the keys are actually laid out a bit different. They're more the type that where there's no gap between the keys, so it's a bit of a different feel. But she's not a big keyboard user. She just needs that keyboard when you need to type that Facebook message, or you know, put a question mark on something. So I was going to keep an eye out for a better one. That was a super cheapy one, so I got a bit greedy there. I saw that cheap deal and I just went for it and said, oh, it'll be good enough. It's going to be better than a broken keyboard. Next time I'll look for a slightly better quality one and try and get one that's in a similar style to the old one, maybe. Or that part doesn't matter, but maybe I can get a lit one. But anyway, it's worked out right. It's going fine. Got a bit of a different feel, and I'm sure it will go for a while like that. It'll probably see out the life of the computer. It's not a you know, it's not an old computer by any stretch, but you know, every once in a while you do upgrade your laptops. So I'm sure one day she will get another one, and that one will go in the box. She's got another one sitting here for her first laptop. She's actually very good on laptops. She does not go through a lot. It's only her second laptop, and before that she had one desktop. I think it was a computer. I can't remember. So she's had one desktop. She's very good on computers. She doesn't go through it very much. She's not a big heavy hard user, so they last her a while. But when we had a lot of trouble with power and the cyclones and that, she decided to go for the laptop and never looked back. So she's only on a second one, and she does use a lot of tablets. She does love her Samsung Galaxy tablets. So anyway, working fine. So no excuses. The hardest part is probably the ribbon cables and just finding any hidden screws, those horrible little ribbon cables, and just being very careful pricing it out. But it's really not hard to do.